The night I found out, I just sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall. I didn't scream. I didn't run. I just sat there, completely still, because my brain had finally done the math on 11 days of things I'd been explaining away. And the answer it came back with was so wrong, so impossible, that my body didn't know what to do with it. Someone had been living under my bed, not a ghost, not something I imagined, a real breathing human being, lying flat on the hardwood floor, in the dark, less than 12 inches below where I slept every single night, for 11 days, maybe longer. My name is Daniel. I'm 31 years old. I live in Columbus, Ohio, and I need to tell you this story exactly the way it happened, because the scariest part isn't the ending. The scariest part is how normal everything felt right up until it wasn't. I moved into my apartment at Harwood Place in March of 2021. 3rd floor, east side of the city, off Morrison Road. 2 bedrooms, one I actually used, one I threw boxes into and forgot about. It was the first time I'd lived alone in 3 years, and honestly, I loved it. I knew my neighbors. I knew the sounds the building made at night. I knew which step in the hallway creaked, and I knew that the guy next door had a beagle named Potato who walked past my door every morning at 7:15. And that clicking sound on the hallway tile meant the day had officially started. 2 years in that apartment. Long enough that I stopped checking things. Long enough that I trusted the space completely. That trust is what made everything possible. The first sign came on February 3rd, 2022. I woke up and noticed a smell in my bedroom. Not a strong smell. That's the important part. If it had been strong, I would have done something about it immediately. But it wasn't. It was faint, right on the edge of my awareness. That warm, stale, closed-in smell. Like a gym bag left in a hot car. Human, but quiet about it. I made a note on my phone that morning. Weird smell in bedroom. Check vent, maybe. I washed my sheets. I figured it was me. I work long hours. My laundry schedule isn't exactly military grade. And I moved on. The smell came back 2 days later. Slightly stronger. I told myself it was the ventilation system. Old building, dusty ducts. I made a mental note to call the building manager. I never called. 4 days after that, on February 7th, I came home from work and went to my bedroom to change. I kicked off my shoes at the foot of the bed the way I always do. And one of them was in the wrong place. My left shoe, about 8 or 10 inches further from the bed than I'd left it that morning. I looked at it for a second. I thought, I must have kicked it harder than I realized. I changed my clothes and forgot about it completely. On the 12th, I noticed my phone charger had shifted. Still plugged in, but the cable was coiled differently. I always leave it in a loose loop on the nightstand. It was hanging down the side of the bed, the end of it touching the floor. I plugged it back in and thought nothing of it. On the 13th, my water usage was higher than usual. I only noticed because I happened to check my utility app. I live alone. My habits don't change, but the daily average for the week was up. I figured there might be a leak somewhere. I made a note to check. I never checked. A moved shoe, a repositioned charger, a higher water bill. 3 things that meant nothing on their own. 3 things that meant everything together. February 11th was a Friday. I'd been out with my neighbor Marcus and some guys from the building. Cheap beer, nothing serious. And I got back to the apartment around 1 in the morning. Relaxed. A little tired. Completely off guard. I went to my bedroom. Didn't turn on the overhead light because I always use the lamp on the nightstand, and I sat on the edge of the bed to take off my socks. And I heard something. It was so quiet, I genuinely wasn't sure I'd heard it at all. A breath, or something shaped like a breath. A single, slow, careful exhale. From very close to the floor, I went completely still. The apartment was quiet. The building was quiet. Outside, a car passed on Morrison Road. Inside, nothing. Just the heat system. Just my own heartbeat, which had suddenly gotten very loud. I waited maybe 30 seconds, maybe a full minute. Nothing. Pipes, I told myself. Old building. You're half tired, and your brain manufactured something out of ambient noise. I finished taking off my socks. I got into bed. I lay in the dark for 20 minutes before I finally convinced myself I was being ridiculous. Then I closed my eyes. and I slept 8 inches below me, on a hardwood floor, in complete darkness. Someone else was doing the same thing. I want to tell you something about my bed, because it matters. It's a queen, on a frame, not a platform bed, the older style with legs, about 8 or 9 inches of clearance underneath. I used the space for storage. 2 large plastic bins full of off-season clothes, pushed toward either wall, with a gap down the middle, a gap roughly the width of a person lying flat. I had not looked under that bed in months. There was no reason to. The bins were there, the stuff was in the bins, and that whole section of the apartment had been filed away in my mind under storage. Do not disturb. Whoever was under there had read that file. They had looked at my bedroom and seen something I had never bothered to notice. A space, hidden, overlooked, human-sized, in the room of a man who lived alone, worked long hours, and hadn't examined his own floor in months. And they had moved in. Sunday night, February 13th. I went to bed early, because I had work the next morning. I fell asleep fast. I'd been sleeping poorly all week without knowing why, and exhaustion finally won. I went under hard, and stayed under. What woke me was not a sound. It was the smell. I came awake slowly, the way you do when something is wrong, but your conscious brain hasn't caught up yet. That warm, stale, human smell, the one I'd been dismissing for 10 days, was stronger than it had ever been. Not faint anymore. Not something you could explain away. Close, immediate, like something breathing right next to me. I did not move. I lay exactly where I was, on my side facing the wall, and I listened. The room was dark. The lamp was off. The building was silent. And then, from directly beneath me, I heard it. A shift, slow and deliberate. The sound of weight being carefully redistributed on a hardwood floor. The sound of someone who is trying very, very hard not to be heard, and almost succeeding. And then a pause. A long, careful, listening pause, where whatever was under my bed went completely still, like it was listening for me. I controlled my breathing. In through my nose, out through my mouth. Slow, steady, trying to sound like someone still asleep, trying to project the stillness of a person who had heard nothing. Every rational part of my brain was insisting that I had misheard, that this was the building, that I was half asleep and scaring myself over nothing. But I kept breathing slowly, because some older, quieter part of me already knew. The movement started again, even slower this time. I tracked it by sound across the room, from beneath the center of the bed, sliding carefully toward the far wall. And then I heard something I will never forget for the rest of my life. My dresser drawer opened, the bottom drawer, the one I keep charging cables in, a few pens, a watch I occasionally wear. It opened with almost no sound at all, the smooth, practiced motion of someone who has done it before, who knows exactly how far to pull before the drawer squeaks, who has spent enough time in this room, in this dark, to memorize the mechanics of my furniture. It stayed open for a moment, then it slid shut, and I lay there, 6 feet away, in the same room, in the same dark, and I did not make a single sound. I lay there for 40 minutes. I know because I checked my phone afterward. 40 minutes of controlled breathing and absolute stillness, listening to the quality of the silence slowly change as whatever was beneath me gradually decided that I was still asleep. The movement eventually stopped, and then, after a while I can't accurately measure, the room had that specific feeling of being empty. You know that feeling. When you're alone in a space and the air just settles differently. That feeling came. I waited another 20 minutes after that. Then I grabbed my phone, turned on the flashlight, leaned over the side of the bed, lifted the bedskirt, and looked. Empty. Just the bins. Just my storage. Except one of the bins had been pushed a few inches closer to the wall than before. That was all. I sat up, turned on the lamp, sat on the edge of my bed with my hands shaking, staring at the floor. My phone read 4:22 a.m. I sat there until the sky outside went gray. I did not go back to sleep. I did not look away from the door. At 6:30 in the morning on February 15, 2022, I called 911. I told the dispatcher I believed someone had been inside my apartment without my knowledge and might still be present. 2 officers arrived. One of them, Officer Delaney, late 30s, calm and professional, cleared the apartment while her partner took my statement in the hallway. I answered questions in what was probably a barely coherent way because the adrenaline had turned my brain into something strange and crystalline, and I kept losing sentences halfway through. It took her 4 minutes to clear the apartment. She called clear from the bedroom, but there was something in the way she said it that made her partner look up from his notepad. When she walked me through the apartment, she brought me to the bedroom and crouched near the floor beside the bed. She shone her flashlight into the space underneath it and showed me what she'd found. Between the 2 storage bins, in the gap I'd never thought to look at, the dust on the hardwood floor had been worn smooth, compressed, in the shape of a body, not from 1 or 2 nights. Over time, worn at the edges from repeated use. Beside one of the bins, a plastic water bottle, a granola bar wrapper, a small LED flashlight, the dollar store kind, chosen specifically because its beam is narrow and easy to control. None of it was mine. Officer Delaney looked at me carefully. She asked how long I'd lived in the apartment. Almost 2 years, I told her. She asked when I'd last moved the bins. I couldn't answer. She nodded like she'd expected that. What she told me was to change my locks immediately and to call back if anything else seemed out of place. What she didn't tell me, what I found out later through my neighbor Marcus and my own research, was that sometime in the fall of 2021, a master key had gone missing from the building management office. A master key that opened every apartment in the building. The building manager, a man named Phil, had not reported this to residents. The locksmith came at 10:30 that same morning. I stood in the hallway and watched him replace both locks, and I held the 2 new keys in my hand and thought about all the mornings I had left for work without a second thought. All the nights I'd come home and dropped my bag in the hallway and gone about my evening like I owned the place. All the time I had spent inside a space that wasn't as private as I believed. I called Phil that afternoon. He answered on the 3rd ring and sounded like a man who already knew why I was calling. He said he was sorry. He said he'd look into the key situation. He said he hoped I was okay. I asked if he knew who had been in my apartment. There was a long pause. Then he said he didn't. Phil resigned from his position the following month. The missing key was never recovered. No one was ever identified. No arrest was ever made. A police technician came back the next day to do a more thorough assessment. What he found told a story. The storage bins had been repositioned deliberately to create a sleeping channel in the center, just wide enough for an adult lying flat. The flashlight had been placed at the far end near the wall, angled so its beam couldn't be seen from above or from the doorway. The water bottle showed mineral deposits from being filled and emptied many, many times. The granola bar wrapper, Quaker Oats, the oats and honey kind, was the type you can open slowly enough that it makes almost no sound. Someone had chosen it for exactly that reason. The technician used the word practiced. He said the wear pattern in the dust suggested the space had been regularly occupied for somewhere between 3 and 6 weeks before I discovered it. 3 to 6 weeks. I had been sleeping above this person, in the same room, breathing the same air, for potentially 6 weeks. And the first real indication I'd had was a smell I'd blamed on my own laundry. They knew my schedule, when I left in the morning, when I came home, how long I slept, which lights I used. They had spent weeks cataloging the rhythms of my life with a patience that I genuinely cannot wrap my mind around even now. 3 years later, they knew I lived alone. They knew no one would check on me. They knew where I kept my spare key, sitting in a dish on the kitchen counter, exactly where I'd left it every single day for 2 years. They knew where I slept. On the afternoon of February 15th, before the locksmith arrived, I went back into my bedroom one more time. I don't know what I was looking for. Some final confirmation maybe. Some last piece of proof that I hadn't imagined all of it. I stood over the bed. I looked at the worn depression in the dust. I looked at the space where the water bottle had been, and then I looked at the wall. At floor level, so low I would never have noticed it unless I was specifically looking. There was a mark, a handprint, faint, dark at the edges, pressed flat against the baseboard. A right hand, fingers slightly spread, the heel of the palm pushing hard against the wall. The kind of mark you leave when you're pushing yourself out from under something. Using the wall for leverage, the fingers were pointed toward the door, toward the hallway, toward the exit. Whoever had been under my bed had not been dragged out, had not been caught, had not panicked. They had decided to leave, on their own terms, on their own timeline. Quietly, the way they had arrived, and I had never heard them go. I moved to a new apartment in April of 2022. I have a platform bed now, solid wood frame, no clearance underneath, nothing but floor. I changed the locks myself before I moved a single box in. I got therapy. For 6 months, I woke at 3:47 a.m. with mechanical precision and lay rigid in the dark, listening to nothing. My therapist told me that what makes this kind of experience so hard to recover from is the inversion it creates. Home is supposed to be the safe place, the innermost room, the place where you stop being afraid. What happened to me is that the threat was already inside the safe place. It wasn't outside the door. It wasn't the city at night. It was the room I slept in, the 6 inches of dark below where I lay most vulnerable. And here's the thing I keep coming back to, even now. It's not the 40 minutes I spent lying there listening to them move. It's not the drawer opening in the dark. It's not even the handprint. It's the question of how many times they made a decision. Every morning I left for work, they made a decision. Every night I came home and went to sleep, they made a decision. For weeks, maybe longer, they chose over and over again to stay hidden, to stay quiet, to stay there, which means they also had the power, at any moment, to make a different decision. They chose to leave eventually, on their own terms, in their own time. But what if they hadn't? What if I had kept explaining things away, the smell, the sounds, the drawer, for another week, another month? What if I had never called the police? I sleep with a lamp on now. Most nights, I eventually turn it off. But there are nights, February nights especially, when the heat is running and the building makes its sounds, when I leave it burning until morning, and sometimes, in that dim yellow light, I find myself looking at the floor beside my bed, at the dark spaces in the corners, at the places where things could be if someone was careful enough and patient enough and quiet enough. And I think about whether I would know, whether I would actually know, or whether I would just keep explaining it away, the smell, the sound, the thing that doesn't quite add up, until the moment I finally did the math and sat on the edge of my bed and stared at the wall, the way I did on February 15th, 2022, the night I finally found out.
I never believed the clown sightings were real. Back in 2016, people all over the country were posting about them. Grainy photos, short videos, a clown standing at the edge of a forest, another one outside a school. Someone claimed they saw one under a bridge at night. Most people thought it was a prank, some viral marketing stunt. Others thought it was just bored teenagers trying to scare people. I was one of those people, until the night I saw him on the subway. It was October, right in the middle of the hysteria. Every news channel was talking about clowns appearing in strange places. Police departments were warning people not to panic, but they were also telling anyone dressed as a clown in public to stop immediately. I worked the late shift at a small IT support company in downtown Chicago. My shift ended at 11:30 p.m. most nights, which meant I usually caught the last trains before the line slowed down for the night. That night had been long and exhausting. 3 system crashes, 2 angry clients, and 1 coffee spill that nearly ruined a server rack. By the time I walked down the subway stairs, all I wanted was to get home, collapse on my couch, and forget the day existed. The station was almost empty, just the hum of fluorescent lights and the distant roar of trains passing through tunnels. A homeless man was sleeping on a bench near the far wall, wrapped in a dirty blanket. A woman in a business suit stood near the platform edge scrolling on her phone, and a security guard leaned against a pillar drinking coffee. Normal, quiet, safe, or at least it felt that way. The train arrived with a metallic screech and a rush of warm air. The doors slid open, and I stepped inside. The car was mostly empty, maybe 5 people total. A teenager wearing headphones sat at the far end. An older man read a newspaper. A couple whispered to each other across the aisle, and one seat near the middle was occupied by someone wearing a hoodie with the hood pulled low over their face. I sat near the back. The doors closed. The train lurched forward. For the first few minutes, everything was normal. The train rattled through tunnels. The lights flickered occasionally. The older man turned the pages of his newspaper. Then the teenager with headphones suddenly looked up. Not at me, not at anyone inside the train. He was staring through the window of the door that led to the next car. His face slowly changed. Confusion, then discomfort, then something closer to fear. He pulled one earbud out. Still staring, I followed his gaze. At first, I didn't see anything, just the dim interior of the next subway car. Empty seats, flickering lights. Then the train curved slightly, and the reflection in the glass shifted. That's when I saw him, standing in the next car. A clown, not the colorful, friendly kind you see at birthday parties. This one looked wrong. His costume was dirty, the white fabric stained gray like it hadn't been washed in years. His red wig hung unevenly, clumped together. His face paint was cracked and smudged, but the worst part was his smile. It wasn't painted on. He was actually smiling. Wide, too wide. The teenager whispered something under his breath. The older man lowered his newspaper. A moment later, everyone in the car seemed to notice the same thing. The clown wasn't moving. He just stood there between the seats of the next car, staring straight at us. The train roared through the tunnel. For a moment, darkness filled the windows. When the lights returned, he was closer. No one had opened the door. No one had heard footsteps. But he was definitely closer. Now he stood only a few rows away from the door connecting the cars. Still smiling. Still staring. The woman across from me whispered, "Is this some kind of joke?" No one answered. The security camera in the corner blinked red. The teenager stood up suddenly. "Yeah, no," he said quietly. "I'm getting off at the next stop." The clown tilted his head, slowly, like he had heard him. The train screeched into the next station. The doors opened. The teenager rushed out immediately. The woman in the suit followed him. The older man folded his newspaper and left without looking back. Within seconds, half the car was gone. I thought about leaving too, but my stop was still 5 stations away, and the clown hadn't entered our car yet. He was still on the other side of the door, just standing there, watching. The doors closed again. The train started moving. The car felt different now. Too quiet, too tense. I kept telling myself it was probably just some idiot trying to scare people. A prank, nothing more. Then the door between the cars slowly slid open. No one touched it. It just opened. The clown stepped through. His shoes squeaked softly against the floor. I noticed something strange then. He wasn't carrying balloons, or juggling pins, or anything you'd expect a clown to have. Instead, he held a small black bag in one hand, and the smile on his face had somehow grown even wider. The couple across the aisle immediately stood up and moved toward the opposite end of the car. The clown didn't react. He just kept walking, one slow step at a time. The train lights flickered again. For a split second, the car went dark. When the lights returned, he was only 3 rows away from me. My stomach twisted. Something was wrong, really wrong. Then the man sitting behind me whispered, "Don't make eye contact." I froze, but it was too late. The clown was already looking straight at me, and for the first time since he entered the car, he stopped smiling. His expression went completely blank. Slowly, he began unzipping the black bag. The zipper echoed loudly through the silent subway car. My heart started pounding. The man behind me stood up carefully and backed away. Everyone else in the car was pressed against the far end now, except me. I was still sitting there, too stunned to move. The clown reached inside the bag and pulled something out, a long, thin metal object. At first, I thought it was a tool. Then the train lights flickered again, and the metal reflected just enough light for me to see what it really was. A knife. The clown tilted his head again, like he was studying my reaction. Then he started walking toward me, slow, calm, unhurried. No one screamed. No one moved. The entire car was frozen. Then the train suddenly slammed to a stop between stations. The lights went out completely. Pitch black. Someone gasped. Someone else whispered, "What the hell?" In the darkness, I heard footsteps. Slow, approaching, closer. Then a voice right next to my ear whispered something I will never forget. "Smile." The lights flickered back on. The clown was gone. The door to the next car swung open slowly. The knife lay on the floor near my seat, but the black bag was gone. So was the clown. The train started moving again like nothing had happened. When we reached the next station, every single passenger ran out. I reported everything to the transit police. They checked the cameras, searched the trains, looked through every car, but they never found him. No clown, no black bag, nothing. The only thing they found was the knife and the security footage, which showed something I still can't explain. The camera inside our subway car recorded every passenger entering that night. Every single one, except the clown. He never appeared on the footage, not once, like he had never been there at all. For weeks after that, I avoided the subway. I started taking buses instead. Longer route, more expensive, but safer. Or at least it felt safer. Eventually, life started to feel normal again. The clown hysteria slowly faded from the news. People stopped talking about sightings. Halloween came and went. Winter settled in, and little by little, the memory of that night stopped haunting me. Until one night, when I was walking home from the bus stop, it was late, cold. The street was quiet, except for the distant sound of traffic. My apartment building was only half a block away. As I walked under a streetlight, I noticed something strange. Another shadow appeared beside mine on the pavement, but I was alone on the sidewalk. I slowed down. The second shadow slowed too. My heart began to pound. I slowly turned my head. Across the street, standing perfectly still beneath a flickering streetlight, was the clown. Same filthy costume, same cracked paint, same unnatural smile. He had followed me. The moment our eyes met, he started walking toward me, slow, calm, exactly like he had on the subway. Panic hit me instantly. I ran the rest of the way to my apartment building and slammed the door behind me. My hands were shaking so badly I nearly dropped my keys trying to unlock my apartment door. Once inside, I locked every lock, deadbolt, chain, everything. Then, I grabbed my phone and called the police. I told them everything. The subway, the clown, that he had followed me home. The dispatcher tried to keep me calm. She said officers were on the way. 5 minutes, maybe less. I stayed on the phone with her while I checked the windows. At first, I didn't see anything. Then I looked down toward the parking lot behind my building, and my blood ran cold. The clown was standing there, looking straight up at my window, still smiling. Then he slowly raised one hand and waved. I stumbled backward from the window. My heart was racing. The dispatcher was still talking, asking if I could see him. Then I heard something in my apartment, a faint creak. From the hallway behind me, I froze. My apartment door was still locked. All the windows were shut, but the sound came again. Closer this time. Footsteps, slow, dragging slightly across the floor. My stomach dropped. I turned around slowly. The hallway was dark, but at the far end, standing just outside my bedroom door, was the clown. I don't know how he got inside. I don't know how long he had been there. Before I could move, he rushed forward. Something hard slammed into the side of my head. The phone dropped from my hand. The room spun. The last thing I saw before everything went black was that horrible smile hovering above me. When I woke up, I was lying on the floor. My wrists were tied behind my back with rough rope. My ankles were bound too. The clown was sitting in a chair across the room, watching me. His knife rested on the table beside him. When he noticed I was awake, his smile slowly returned. He stood up and walked toward me. Each step felt like a countdown. My heart pounded in my ears. He crouched down beside me. The knife glinted in his hand as he picked it up. Then, he leaned close and whispered the same word he had said on the subway. Smile. I heard sirens in the distance. Loud. Getting closer. The clown's head snapped toward the window. The sirens grew louder. Right outside the building now, for the first time since I met him. The smile disappeared from his face. He stood up quickly. Footsteps thundered in the hallway outside my apartment. Someone shouted, "Police, open the door." The clown looked down at me one last time. Then he ran toward the back window. The front door burst open seconds later. Officers rushed inside with their weapons drawn. They cut the ropes off my wrists and helped me sit up. I tried to explain everything through shaking breaths. They searched the entire apartment. But just like before, The clown was gone. The back window was open, the cold night air blowing through the room. The police searched the entire neighborhood that night. Dogs, flashlights, patrol cars everywhere, but they never found him. Not a single trace. Sometimes I still wake up in the middle of the night thinking I hear footsteps in my hallway. Sometimes I swear I see a shadow standing outside my window. And every time I ride the subway now, I check the next car, just in case, because somewhere out there, that clown is still smiling. I never believe in 2025 when I loved someone, anything could actually happen to that one person that I love.